All right, so I already drew out the beginning of this analysis, but let me just go ahead and show you what I was doing before. I drew out my daily injection, right? I had an injection up here. I kind of want to see if we come and test into it, right? I had the trend line as before. We had a break of the injection right here. Because we had the break of this injection, it works very similar to the inducement points, right? The structural inducements, where this was the candle breaking, this was the candle causing this to break. So this is our POI from a daily perspective. If we move into the 4-hour, what's also going on here, right? Here was our high time frame sweep, right? So it already initiated us to start looking for sells during the intraday, right? If we take the same criteria that we take on the lower time frames, what happened? Again, here's the candle that broke the inducement. This is the candle causing it to break. And as we can see, we have almost a perfect mitigation here. And I'm sure if we go on to the lower time frames, all right, we're going to see where we could have refined this a bit more. So we can now hop into, well, before I do that, let me clear up the structure. I got a question about structure actually, so I'm going to go ahead and show in this breakdown, how do I draw in my structure points? It's actually just very simple. I start off on the daily, right? And I'm just finding, I scrunch out my screen, the highs and lows, right? And once I figure out my daily highs and lows, right, coming in, I then come into the 4-hour. And from this daily point here, I move my way down to the next extreme, and then I start marking in my higher highs and lower lows. We only know that we make this lower low, right? Once we make this higher high, this low comes pretty close down to it. So it's pretty relative. That's why I had both of them in. And we kind of rock it all the way up here. Drawing in structure also just comes with constant experience, constantly backtesting, just constantly marking up a graph. What else? All right, so we understand what's going on from the daily 4-hour perspective, right? We knew that once this candle crossed around 1 a.m., and I didn't put this down in trade ideas, I should have, it's my fault. But I knew once this candle came in breaking the inducement that this candle might have grabbed some attention, right? So we can move into now the 1-hour, right? And start marking up some structure. And this seems reasonable. Yeah, we can kind of slightly place that high there. It's kind of in between an hourly and 15-minute inducement. We know all these inducements are in here. This is actually something good to go over, but if our external liquidity, right, gets swept, this wasn't from today. The top extreme, right, usually gets mitigated. Doesn't look like it. Oh, it did right here. I thought it would come over here, but it looks like it just mitigated right away here, because this is the internal liquidity and the green is the external, right? And we're going to go over internal and external liquidity because you're probably thinking, well, if this is external and this is internal, is this internal too? No, this is actually back to external liquidity, right? Because we're no longer a part of this liquidity pool. We've completely broken out of daily liquidity, right? We're even breaking out of what the 4-hour liquidity that is over here based off of that structural inducement. All right, and like I said before, in the 4-hour, this was one candle breaking. Well, this whole area right here was, yeah, this whole area right here was acting as the part where we could ping pong it. Right, this is where we could hop and buys. Now it looks like it's giving us another opportunity, right, to sell as we have a sweep, right, bearish engulfing, and here's our retest. Right, so it looks like the market could come back down, but either way, we're hedged, right, because we were in sells right here. We can get in buys right here and perhaps restack the sells back here, and it might give us another opportunity down here to restack the buys. So that's pretty much everything I'm seeing on the 1-hour. Let's go on to 15-minute. See what was going on there. Now I'm taking off the indicator. So yeah, all of these right here were pretty much minor inducement. Minor inducement's generally yellow, right? Why is this minor? Because it's inside of the hourly, right? I would actually, so this one right here is not as minor. I wouldn't explain why. This was the first retracement into this imbalance, right? And this was a push that tried to break this high but it couldn't, right? So because of this, this now becomes internal to what is external, right? See how this point here and this point here are creating external liquidity, while this point inside is creating the internal liquidity, right? So that means every time we get an external sweep, we should start seeing it pop up a little bit more, right? Another external sweep, it pops up, right? So it will take a long time for your eyes to kind of adjust to it, I guess. It's not, you know, there are ways to explain, there's just so many different scenarios, I would say, right? In terms of external, internal liquidity, eventually your eyes really do just adjust to it naturally as you constantly look at graphs, as you're constantly drawing in the structure points and trying to find where the liquidity is grabbing, right? Like we can clearly see that this is external, right? So if that's the case, then just trade this part, right? I know a couple of traders that only trade the clear external liquidity, don't trade anything that's not clear to you, right? This low right here is a little unclear to me, so I wouldn't force buys here, right? But once we start the structural phase, right? Anytime we start a structural liquidity cycle, right? Start the structural liquidity cycle, I know to start buying again. So that's why at this point here during New York, right, I started looking for buys, and that's why you saw me mark out this right here. Now, in terms of my refinements, I hopped into the 1 minute. And basically what I saw here was a structural inducement, right? So this came out of the POI. We came back here, had a bullish engulfing, right? So I wanted to take that bullish engulfing right here. Now, the only way I would have taken this was if it was immediate or if it had exactly what was happening here. I'm about to show that. All right, so this comes back into the POI. We make a clear OB that had what? That had a bullish engulfing. What else happened? This candle got swept by this OB right here. So that adds more validity to it. We have this clear BOS, right? This sweep back into the POI, right? Allowing my original buy position right here. Absolutely run. What else is going on here was our internal inducement, right? So we could have caught continuations here. Again, I like waiting for the 10-minute. I know some people just like waiting on the 1 minute. I still use the 1 minute. As you can see, I'm using the 1 minute to refine the 10-minute. All right, so what was going on here? Here, we broke, right? I'm not sure if you remember, but I put this in. Here we broke the minor structural inducement. Minor structural inducements are normally continuations, right? This was the candle that caused it, right? There was no OB to be found here. So what I did was I took the wicks of this candle, right? And the reason why I took the wicks of this candle is because, as we know, wicks are imbalances, right? They have OBs within them, right? So I hopped into the 1 minute, did the very similar thing, right? I wanted to look for the candle coming out of the POI, right? I come back, right? So in case anyone's wondering, if you're new, right? If you're in the video mentorship, I didn't put this in the video mentorship based videos. This is something that comes with time because there's so many different 1 minute refinement setups. So through these breakdowns, you're going to see a variety. For this one in particular, you know, you're going to see that they're all kind of relatively similar. But what I'm looking for right here is once this 10-minute POI is formed, right, this candle is pushing out of the POI. I want to backtrace and see where my 1 minute OBs are. I can see I have a 1 minute, POI here and a 1 minute POI here. Right, but there's something very specific that I'm looking for. For one, if there's an imbalance with the 1 minute OB, right? An imbalance meaning this candle has not been touched or mitigated, similar to how this one has been mitigated over here. Right, since this one hasn't been mitigated, I'm already relying more on this one than I am on this one. That's the first thing. The second thing is, right, did my original OB, so this one here, did this OB sweep any liquidity, right? Did it sweep previous liquidity? It usually has to be the candle before it. It swept the candle before it, and it swept this candle right here, right? So it's actually telling me that it's receiving a money transfer from this area here, right? So it's actually creating somewhat of order flow, allowing me to hit these refinements right here. All right, I've been teaching I teach my one-on-ones this, one-on-one. I spend quite a lot of time on this for the last couple of lessons. As you can see, there's your 0.9 refinement, and that right there is an easy 1 to 8. Right, you could have caught this whole move as like a 1 to 5, or you can just catch this little guy right here and still get a 1 to 8. So those were the buy trades coming up in New York. That's what I saw. I only entered this today. I didn't get anything else. All right, I'm okay with that though. I hit around a 1 to 9. I was pretty happy about that. I was not able to catch these shorts here because I was too focused on the 10-minute. All right, so what I was doing was I was completely waiting on the 10-minute to have an engulfing candle here. And it is important to understand that wicks are also candle closures on other time frames. However, I'm not treating it like that for right now, but a lot of people, or a lot of you guys, I saw you use the 5-minute. So you saw that there was somewhat of an evening star pattern coming in here. This engulfed close behind it. So a lot of you are taking this, which is perfectly valid. I don't like the 5-minute personally. Whatever works, works. So a lot of people started the ping pong price right back down here after we swept London, right? And high time frame was telling us what to go short here, right? So yeah, picking up buys anywhere in here was fine. We could use what method? Open, high, low, close as for our entries, right? So open, low, and high is always the sweep, right? So this would be the sweep. So our best entries for sells could have been somewhere here. That's best case, obviously. And then right into what the 4-hour POI that I was showing you before. All right, let's hop into the 1 minute now. I want to show you how you can refine based on the 1 minute. This was the candle coming out. Did this candle sweep liquidity? Yes, it did. This is valid. Yeah, we would have stopped up, but what else is valid? This one's also valid. It swept what? Liquidity before it got engulfed, right? We would have taken re-entries regardless. But our best entries were actually based off of the open, high, low, close. Now, there was a 1 minute pattern too that I want to explain. As you can see, like the way I trade is definitely a little bit more simple. It doesn't require as much pattern recognition as some of the advanced techniques you see out there. I'm going to go ahead and show you what the majority of people usually see trading SMC. The majority of people are tracking structure, right? 1 minute structure here. And the first thing that happens, right, is we need to see a sweep of that structure and the inducement before, right? So there's that original sweep, right? Here's that confirmation BOS. Maybe a lot of people started entering off of this 1 minute OB, right? If that wasn't enough confirmation, we had another break of, this was kind of a break of structure. We kind of liquidated buy side liquidity again, right? And then we had supply chain or order flow, whatever you want to call it, into these cells here. There were numerous ways to enter these cells. What was important to understand was simply, once we swept these highs, we knew we were going to reverse, right? There's numerous ways you could have entered that. And again, simply, we're just tracking structure here, right? Making lower lows, lower highs, right? And eventually dumps. Now, how could we have entered this 4-hour POI? Well, it's the same exact reasoning, right? Like you could have, gone instant entry if you truly wanted to. If we come back over here and we want to find some refinements, let's mark up the internal structure that we have, right? So this is supposed to be refined like down to here. We originally had this, right? So if we bring this out, right, what was the candle that caused this push was right here on the 10-minute. Doesn't look like we would have been able to grab, and it doesn't look like we would have been able to grab that refinement either. So that paints that out of the picture. What else could we look at? Possibly see how we could have grabbed these entries. 5-minute, there was no confirmation coming into it. Let's check the 1-minute. Let's see if we have a divergence into this POI. All right, so here's an entry that we could have taken. Here's a divergence into the POI. Price is going down while this is coming up, right? Once we have a divergence in our POI, the entry methods are always the same. Here's your bullish engulfing, right? After that divergence. So once this occurs, there's reasoning for entry, right? Again, I don't trade this way. I usually wait for the 10-minute. I'm a little bit more patient sometimes, right? And if we waited on the 10-minute, simply morning star, right? Here's the OB, right? Now I'm not just taking the OB, I'm looking back on the 1-minute to see if I have any refinements. So theoretically, yes, we have a refinement. Again, it's not something I would take. Whenever we have, I'm going to draw this diagram out. Price comes in, makes like a W, right? And we break that W, right? Sometimes we have a retest of this W, but there's got to be specific reasoning as to why we retest, right? We're only going to be able to retest the top and the top only if there's a strong imbalance coming through, right? So this has to be consecutive bullish candles, right? There can be no liquidity buildup, right? Because when I see this type of pattern occur, I need to know that there is a strong occurrence, a strong momentum shift occurring in the market, right? And if we come retest, this OB or wicks, right, then it's very likely to hit those wicks and run. That's kind of what's happening here. I don't like these refinements. I think they're risky, but they do happen. I see them happen. So yeah, you could have entered here, and or taken this whole OB. Now, can we get right back into the shorts again? Sure, it's a high risk short. Why is it high risk? It's high risk because this was the third liquidity grab for one, right? 1, 2, 3 liquidity grabs. And we took, this is also considered buy side liquidity, right? So betting on this 15-minute OB is generally pretty risky, but yeah, you could have resold back into there. But that's today's breakdown for the most part, right? Best trades that I saw were these buys and these sells. Then it became a little bit risky if you decide to trade a little bit more in here, right? Trade setups that are clear to you. Like I said, I only stick to one style only. It's waiting for that 10-minute OB and then going into the 1-minute to find cleaner refinements, or sometimes just using open, high, low, closed to grab other refinements, right? Like this here. If you're comfortable using the 5-minute post sweep like I did here, then go ahead and do that, because a lot of you guys did well doing that today, right? But do whatever works for you, right? Because as you can see, I still achieved the 1 to 9 today, just trading this little guy, right? And I didn't even catch the rest of these, right? I didn't get a single other trade. I was just too busy, eating food and not really paying attention. I just got this trade. I was done for the day. I wasn't really focused after that. But yeah, these were really the possibilities. Hopefully you learned something new. So yeah, this is only going out to 101 in video mentorship today. Now I gotta make a breakdown for Discord.